Message to the Black Man in America by Elijah Muhammad, Part 19. A house doomed to fall. We cannot deny the fact that the Christian West is responsible for this universal corruption in the land and sea. From the same corruption that their own hands have wrought will come their doom. But the Christians preach that which they do not do and cannot do, such as love thy neighbor. I have as yet to meet one who loved his neighbor as he did himself. Thou shalt not kill. I have as yet to meet such a Christian. They even fight against each other, rob and kill each other, but yet represent themselves as world peacemakers, with whom the great deceivers of the world will reap what they have sown. Have not they corrupted many people and nations under the false disguise of good, peaceful, loving Christians? The Christian West is full of the worst enemies, practicing evils and indecency to the fullest, and seeking to practice them on other nations as well. Universal tempters, ever parading before the world their bold, half-nude girls and women. They are before your eyes in almost everything, regardless to what it is: murder, gambling, robbery, drunkenness, drugs, adultery, lying. There is hardly any end to it. Their land and seas are filled with deadly weapons of war. Their islands of the sea are filled with corruption by all of the nations of the earth, for they are proud and boastful and are now hated and despised according to their wishes. Their religion, Christianity, is a curse to us, the black man, and is full of slavery teaching. They have poisoned the Bible with their adding and taking to and from the truth. Now their doom is in sight. It is their own work. They rule the sea with powerful, deadly ships, parking them off shores of the homes of other nations. They secure air bases on foreign soils to park deadly bomb-carrying planes within striking distances of those whom they think to be their enemies. Is this not the easy way to make enemies? Is this the act of a real Christian? The followers of Jesus whom they preach came for the peace of mankind and to teach the sheathing of the sword and the turning of the other cheek? Where is a good Christian among this race? They love meddling in other people's affairs. They are in every fight or war, regardless of with whom or where, but yet crying peace, peace, with every deadly weapon of war, brandishing them before the nations as a dare. Shall not the God of peace and justice deal with such a troublemaking people as he did with those before you of old? I warn every one of you, my people, fly to Allah with me. As I warned you, the judgment of this world has arrived. Get out of the church and get into the mosque and join on to your own kind, the nation of Islam. The house you are in shall surely fall and never rise again. The fulfillment of prophecy seen, the sign of the coming of God. And Jesus said unto them, See ye not these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be torn down. The book of Matthew, chapter 24. This chapter refers to the signs of the judgment of the wicked world. Jesus pointed out examples of the destruction of the Jewish temple or synagogue, and the historians wrote that the Romans came about 70 years later after the death of Jesus and sacked Jerusalem. Really, this was not the end of Jesus' prophecy of the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans, for all the stones were not overthrown by Rome. This had reference to the end of the whole world of the wicked. Let us take note of his words in the 4th and 5th verses. Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. This did not happen before the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans. This refers to the entire period of 2,000 years after his, meaning Jesus' death. It is referring to the many who would come and try to imitate him and shall deceive many, especially the very ignorant people who are given to superstition who can be easily deceived, and they will sometimes add to a leader's title whom they are not serving. For instance, the ancient Romans were so ignorant and superstitious of the divine supreme being that they made God for themselves out of stone, wood, bulls, and the stars of heaven, such as Venus. They still have in the Vatican, so I am told, an image of a calf made of pure gold. It is the Pope of Rome today whom the Church accepts as its intercessor between the Christians and God, and all Catholics, such as priests and cardinals, profess to have the power to pray the soul out of purgatory. All of this is completely out of line with the true worship of God. The Pope takes his place as the head of the Christian Church, while the Church at the same time claims that Jesus Christ is its head, but in reality they recognize the Pope, Father, as being their head. Of course, this is more true because Jesus was not the head of any church. The church was organized by the Romans, according to history, and not by Jesus. And the truth of this is that the church, does not have any divine power for anyone. If the Christians were not backed by the white man's money, guns, power, and bombs, the church would have no power at all. Here, many are deceived by the millions in bowing to the head of the church, the Pope of Rome. The late Pope, who recently died, according to history, used to be a soldier and then a general. He fought in wars and did many other acts of unrighteousness before taking his place as the head of the church. Many shall come in my name. This does not mean every little local fellow. It means people who get national and world fame by claiming themselves to be Jesus Christ or God. There have been many who have risen up in Islam in the past who went in the name of the Mahdi, but were not all the true Mahdi. Even to the late Maulana Muhammad Ali, who also claimed himself to have been Christ, the Messiah, when he was among the Christians, the Jews, Hindus, and among the Muslims, their Mahdi. Today, that has all been hushed up and past. The world does not look to him as having been their Mahdi or the Christians' Messiah. Old Orthodox Christians, like old Orthodox Hebrews, have expected a return of their once great spiritual leaders or prophets, Moses and Jesus, who taught as the Christians teach today, a return of Jesus at the end of the world. Old Orthodox Muslims preach a return of Muhammad of 1400 years ago, or that there would be no need of another prophet after him, for he settled everything. They do not take the slightest thought that these prophets could not have been the last who would usher in the judgment. There have been so many things that have come to pass since the time that someone is needed to enlighten the people as to these latest events and to serve as a guide for the people into the presence of God. What the prophets brought to the people 4,000 years ago was for that people for the next 2,000 years to the birth of Jesus. And what Jesus brought forth, the Injil or New Testament, was to last until the end of the world. That is the time and destruction of the wicked world ruled by Satan and the setting up of a new universal government under the guidance of Allah or Mahdi, sometimes called the Great Mahdi, to make a distinction from the many others who will be called by such name, as there are as many Muslims who have adopted Mahdi, like the many Italians who have adopted Jesus for their names. The next verse, 6, tells us that Jesus had in mind the end of the entire world and not just Jerusalem. It reads like this: "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." The wars mentioned in the 6th verse, the nations rising against nations, kingdoms against kingdoms, and famines and pestilence and earthquakes mentioned in the 7th verse, are what we must expect to take place before the end. rise and fall of the Christian West. The fall of America is now visible and understandable, not only in the eyes of scholars and scientists, but even in the eyes and understanding of the ignorant. Long has Allah been gradually removing the power of the great and mighty America, while few have noticed. This has been done by degrees, and they do not perceive it. The Holy Quran says he brings powerful nations to a naught, and when it is discovered, it is like a growth of cancer that has been eating at the body for many years while the patient was unaware of it. Today it is visibly understood that the fall of America cannot be checked, for the foundation has been removed. The 1914 war, which involved all of the white race, crushed the power of Turkey in Europe and pushed that power back across the Bosphorus, or pushed Islam out of Europe. An old prophetic saying in that when Turkey has been pushed out of Europe across the Bosphorus, settling her capital away from the once Constantinople, this would mark the end of the white world. I can say truthfully, and the scientists will agree, that the 1914 war marked the fall of the white world as a power over the black world, the Aboriginal people. That was some 50 years ago. In another prophecy, the War of 1914 is referred to as the War of the Antichrist, or what we today call Christian Europe and America. They are referred to as Antichrist because they are against the government of the true God and of the black people. Christ here means God in person in the last days, or end of the Caucasian world. The name Christ spiritually means one who is coming at the end to crush the power of the infidel or the race of devils. It is easy for you to understand that they are against the real Christ by their persecutions, jailing, beatings, and killing of the prophets and their followers of Allah God. Now they openly tell you of their plans to kill me, the last messenger of God and resurrector of the mentally dead of my people. At the present hour they hold hundreds and thousands of my followers in prison, threatening them with the worst treatment because they are Muslims. You can also see how at the present time no Muslim followers of mine can get justice in the lily white courts of America. Of course, the same conditions prevail for most of the so-called American Negroes. There is no justice for any of us in the courts of white people. They have been made manifest to the world as being a race of devils, wherein we cannot expect any justice or sincere friendship unless we are everything that they are in wickedness. Righteousness is hated by them. We have given you an example of the ones who are trying to be righteous and peaceful in their midst, and yet we are the most hated of all. They even teach my own people to hate me and then charge me with teaching hate. I warn my people to beware of such an evil race of people. Beware of their deceitful plans to trick black Americans into going to their doom with them. They are so afraid that Allah will give the so-called American Negro wisdom and a grand kingdom of some of this earth that we can call our own under the beautiful crescent of Islam, meaning the entire submission to the will of Allah God, that they are even teaching the so-called American Negro soldiers, as I have learned, against accepting Islam. The truth is worrying them. They should teach the so-called American Negro that the white man has never wanted him to be free, never wanted him to leave them, and never wanted to exercise the God-given freedom, justice, and equality that even nature offers. And there is a battle in the sky, which is near. The vision of Ezekiel's wheel in a wheel in the sky wheel is true if carefully understood. There is a similar wheel in the sky today, which very well answers the description of Ezekiel's vision. This wheel corresponds in a way with the spear of spears called the universe. The maker of the universe is Allah God, the father of the black nation, which includes the brown, yellow, and red people. The great wheel which many of us see in the sky today is not so much a wheel as one may think in such terms, but rather a place made like a wheel. The like of this wheel plane was never seen before. You cannot build one like it and get the same results. Your brains are limited. If you would make one to look like it, you could not get it up off the earth into outer space. The similar Ezekiel's wheel is the masterpiece of mechanics. Maybe I should not say the wheel is similar to Ezekiel's vision of a wheel, but that Ezekiel's vision has become a reality. His vision of the wheel included hints on the great wisdom of Almighty God Allah, that really He is the maker of the universe, and reveals just where and how the decisive battle would take place in the sky. When guns and shells took the place of the sword, man's best defense against such weapons was a trench. Poison gas and liquid fire brought him out. Today he has left the surface or the sky to destroy his enemy by dropping and exploding bombs on each other. All of this was known in the days of Ezekiel, and God revealed it to him, that through Ezekiel we might know what to expect at the end of this world. The originator and his people, the original black people, are supremely wise. Today we see that the white race preparing for the sky battle to determine who shall remain and rule this earth, black or white. In the battle between God and the disbelievers in the days of Noah, the victor's weapon was water. He used fire in the case of Sodom and Gomorrah. In the battle against Pharaoh, he used 10 different weapons, which included fire and water, hailstones and great armies of the insect world, and droughts, and finally plagued with death. The Holy Quran says the chastisement of Pharaoh was like that of which God would use against his enemies in the last days. Throughout the Bible and the Holy Quran teachings on the judgment and destruction of the enemies, fire will be used as the last weapon. The earth's greatest arms are fire and water. The whole of its atmosphere is made up of fire and water and gases. It serves as a protective coat of arms against any falling fragments from her neighbors. Ezekiel saw the wheels in the middle of a wheel. This is true. The universe in the universe. It is made up of revolving spheres. There are wheels in that wheel. The present wheel-shaped plane, known as the mother planes, is 1/2 mile by a 1/2 mile and is the largest mechanical man-made object in the sky. It is a small human planet made for the purpose of destroying the present world of the enemies of Allah. The cost to build such a plane is staggering. The finest brains were used to build it. It is capable of staying in outer space 6 to 12 months at a time without coming into the Earth's gravity. It carried 1,500 bombing planes with the most deadliest explosives, the types used in bringing up mountains on the Earth. The very same method is used in the destruction of this world. The bombs are equipped with motors, and the toughest of steel was used in the making of them. This steel drills and takes the bombs into the earth at a depth of 1 mile and is timed not to explode until it reaches 1 mile into the earth. This explosion produces a mountain 1 mile high. Not one bomb will fall into water. They will all fall on cities, as Ezekiel saw and heard in his vision of his chapter 10, verse 2. The plane is terrible. It is seen, but do not think of trying to attack it. That would be suicide. The small circular made planes called flying saucers, which are so much talked about of being seen, could be from this mother plane. This is only one of the things in store for the white man's evil world. Believe it or not, this is to warn you and me to fly to our own God and people. The great decisive battle in the sky. And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth the distress of nations with perplexity. the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for the looking after those which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. They see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. The book of Luke chapter 21, verses 25 through 27. You would bear me witness that we are living in such a time as mentioned in the above prophecy. Signs in the sun and in the moon, the phenomenon going on in the sun and its family of planets testify to the truth that something of the greatest magnitude is about to take place. The final war between God and the devils in the sky. Allah God, who has the power over all things, is bringing the powers of the sun, moon, and stars into display against his enemies. The fire of the sun to scorch and burn men and the vegetation and dry up the waters. The moon will eclipse her light to bring darkness upon man and upon all living things, to disrupt her with waves, all air communications. The magnetic powers of the moon will bring about such tidal waves of the seas and oceans as man has never witnessed before. The sea and the waves are roaring, as men's hearts fail them with fear at the sea, looking upon the great tidal waves coming toward them like mountains. They also shall see a great display of the power from Allah God in the sky, that their hearts will fail. Great earthquakes never felt before since man was upon the earth will take place, say the Bible and the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran says there will not be one city left that will not be leveled to the ground. Using this force against the enemies of Allah will make it impossible for them to survive. This is all known to this world, but why are they trying to build up a defense against God? It is useless. America has it coming. Look how she has been and is still mistreating her free slaves, the so-called Negroes. The foolish so-called Negro preachers and leaders want social equality with these, their enemies. The great distress of nations, spoken or prophesied of coming in the above chapter and verse, is now going on. Confusion all over the Western world today. They, devils, see the end of their world, and they see the signs of the Son of Man coming in the sky with power and great glory. The great Ezekiel will and the unity of the Muslim world and the distress of nations. The so-called Negro must awaken before it is too late. They think that white man's Christianity will save them regardless of what happens, and they are gravely mistaken. They must know that the white man's religion is not from God, nor from Jesus or any of the prophets. It is controlled by the white race and not by Almighty God Allah. The near event draws nigh. There shall be none besides Allah to remove it. Do you wonder at this announcement? And will you laugh and not weep while you sport and play? So make obeisance to Allah and serve Him. And that's in Surah 53, ayat 57, 58, 59, and 60. Let us remember another Quran saying, none disputes concerning the communications of Allah God, but those who disbelieve. Therefore let not their going to and fro in the cities deceive you. The people of Noah and their parties after them rejected prophets before them, and every nation proposed against their apostle to destroy them, and they disputed by means of the falsehood, that they may thereby render null the truth. Therefore I destroyed them. How was then my retribution? And thus did the word of your Lord prove true against those who disbelieve, that they are the inmates of fire. And that is Surah 40, ayat 4 through 6. The battle in the sky. The final war between Allah God and the devils is dangerously close. The very least amount of friction can bring it into action within minutes. There is no such thing as getting ready for this most terrible and dreadful war. They are ready, preparing for the battle between man and man or nations has been made and carried out on land and water for the past 6,000 years. Man has now become very wise and has learned many of the secrets of nature. which makes the old battles with swords and bows and arrows look like their child play. Since 1914, which was the end of the time given to the devil's white race to rule the original black nation, man has been preparing for a final showdown in the skies. He has made a remarkable advancement in everything pertaining to a deadly, destructive war in the sky. But Allah, the best of planners, having a perfect knowledge of his enemies, prepared for their destruction long ago, even before they were created. Thanks to Allah, to whom eternal praise is due, who came in the flesh and blood. He has been here for more than 70 years, making himself ready for the final war. Allah, whom we praise, comes in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, the great Mahdi, expected by the Muslims, and the Antichrist, the devils, under the names of Son of Man, Jesus Christ, Messiah, God, Lord, Jehovah, the last Jehovah, and the Christ. These meanings are good and benefiting as titles, but the meaning of his name Mahdi, as mentioned in the Holy Quran Sharif, Surah 22:54, is better. All of these names refer to him. His name, Farad Muhammad, is beautiful in its meaning. He must bring an end to war, and the only way to end war between man and man is to destroy the war maker, the troublemaker. According to the history of the white race devils, they are guilty of making trouble, causing war among the people and themselves ever since they have been on our planet Earth. So the God of the righteous has found them disagreeable to live in with peace, and has decided to remove them from the face of the earth. God does not have to tell us that they are disagreeable to live with in peace. We already know, for we are the victims of these troublemakers. Allah will fight this war for the sake of his people, the black people, and especially for the American so-called Negroes. As I have said time and time again, we the so-called American Negroes will be the lucky ones. We are Allah's choice to give life, and we will be put on top of civilization. Regrets of the doubters. On the day when the wrongdoer will bite his hand, saying, "Would that I had taken away with the messenger." Quran, Surah 22, Ayat 27. According to the histories of the prophets of the past, all of their rejected enemies and mockers of the people had the same regret when the truth of the message that these prophets delivered was made manifest, and the disbelievers hated themselves for rejecting those warners and prophets of old. The people of Noah showed regret when they saw the flood coming upon them. The people of Sodom and Gomorrah regretted their ignorant acts of disbelieving the truth of Abraham and Lot, and wished that they had followed Lot out of the city, and that they had believed before the fire came, so that their cities and their lives would not have been destroyed. It is also with great regret of Pharaoh and his people for not believing in the warning that Moses brought to them from Allah. When these rejectors of the prophets saw their doom approaching, they said, as the disbelievers said in the 27th verse, that they wished they had followed the prophet. And so it will be, according to the Bible and Quran, with those with whom this particular 25th chapter refers to reject the last one in the time we are now living in, the resurrection and the judgment. Those of my people and the weak Orthodox Muslims who reject the plain truth and warning that Allah has revealed to me, and that I am teaching to fly to Allah and his true religion of entire submission and submit to his will. Do so because of their love for the enemies of Allah. They love the wealth and riches of this people who love not God, the giver of the wealth and riches that they have been made so abundantly blessed with. They wish to remain and enjoy the wealth with these people as well, with intermarrying and their sport and play. They will say what the formal rejectors said when they see the chastisement of Allah coming upon them and all of their wickedness, evil, and murders. The so-called American Negroes will also wish they had followed me to Allah. The biting of their hands, as mentioned in the verse, shows intense grief for their mistake of accepting the false friendship of this evil and murderous race. The white American citizens and the Negroes who are today preaching friendship and intermarriage with the 400-year-old enemies, will say these same words, "Oh, woe is me, what I had not taken such a one for a friend." And they will confess that certainly he leads me astray from the messenger after he had come to me with clear warning and with plain truth, and will admit that the devil's promises were all false, and he only deceived them in the words given in the same 29th verse, "And the devil ever deserts man." What should we set our hearts and mind on today? Finding the right path and walking therein to our God, Allah, and his religion, Islam, that he may make a way for us on some of this earth that we can call our own, and deliver us from our open enemies, our deceivers, and from evil and filthy doings. The God of Islam demands us to forsake our enemies and their names and religion and all that goes with them, and to completely submit to him. He, Allah, has said to me that he will set us in heaven at once. Allah's promise is ever true. He fails not in his promise, but this race of devils will promise you and will fail to fulfill it, especially if it is promised of good. I beg you, as a brother and sister of mine, fly to Allah, for the days of resurrection are not coming. They are here and now, and the dead are rising, as it is written. Let us repeat this prayer. O Allah, guide me among those whom thou hast guided aright, and preserve me among those whom thou hast preserved, and befriended, and bless me in whatsoever thou doest. Grant me and deliver me from the evils of what thou hast judged. Surely thou judgest, and none can judge against thee, and he whom thou befriendest is not disgraced.